It's Motivation Monday, a new week, a fresh start and another opportunity to level up. This is your moment to reset your mindset, refocus your energy, and realign with your purpose. Whatever didn't work last week, that's done. Today you move differently, stronger, smarter, more disciplined, because growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from pressure, consistency, and showing up when it's hard. No excuses, no distractions, just elevation. The grind starts now, the discipline kicks in today. And the results, that's on you. Every move you make this week is building something bigger. So set the tone today, or spend the rest of the week trying to catch up. Because every Monday is a chance to rewrite your story, to step into a new version of yourself. This isn't just another week. This is your rebirth, Motivation Monday, powered by the Final Boss.
Nice. Welcome. It is Motivation Monday. Motivation Monday, man. Listen, I got a great show for you tonight, man. Listen. A great show, man. We are getting ready to get into it. But look, if you don't know, well, look, you know what, man? Some of y'all beat me here tonight, and I appreciate each and every last single one of you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us, man. We're going to, man, I'm super hyped. It's Motivation Monday, man. We got the fired up train in the building, right? We got the fired up train in the building. And guess what? Go get Go Time 1, all aboard the fired up train, and then turn around and get Go Time 2. The train has left the station. It is now where all books are sold and available, man. Go pick those books up, man. Go pick those books up and learn your something, right? We're talking about changing lives on here, man. Change your lives, being motivated, but not motivation through the idea of energy. We're talking about motivation through the principle of discipline, through the fired up train acronym, right? And those disciplines, the 6 pillars of success, the six building blocks of reward are all part of both of those principles in each one of those books that you need to learn that can help change your life, right? You've been doing, listen to me, man. You've been doing the exact same thing your entire life, the exact same thing you've been doing your entire life. And guess what? You're still treading water. You're still looking at the beach coastline, and you cannot get to the beach, right? You're in the water like this. Head above the water, can't get in, can't swim to the shoreline, right? You know why you can't swim to the shoreline? Because you're doing the exact same thing that you've always been doing, and it's time for a change. You want that change? Book 1, Go Time, all aboard the fired up train will help. Book 2, the train is at the station, will complete that process, right? And then book 3 is around the corner. Book 3 is around the corner, man. It is coming out very soon. Book 3, that'll complete the trilogy. That will complete the trilogy. But look, man, tonight we got a great show for you. This is Motivation Mondays. This is season 4, The Rebirth, Arc 5, The Declaration, episode number 293. That's right, episode number 293. If you enjoy our content, man, like, share, subscribe. But not only like, share, subscribe, man, go look at all our other episodes, man, at our website at www.thefinalbosspodcast.com. Next up, newsletter. Next up, courses. Man, we're going to be all over the place, man. Y'all are going to get sick and tired of the Final Boss, right? Season 5, the harvest is coming. We got great things coming for the harvest. Man. We got logo changes. We got show changes, man. We got the newsletter coming out. We got the courses that are coming out that are going to be on different platforms, man. Listen, we're going to be everywhere. I got Vital Signal. Vital Signal is coming out, baby. Listen, Vital Signal is coming out. If you can see it, it's right here. Look, I'm super proud of that, man. Whew. Right? All right. Got those out the way. Oh, if you want to get a part of our emails, or if you want to shoot us an email, right? Because you like us, you love us, or because you want to be a part of the show, you have questions, you have concerns, anything, you want to be a part of our bigly town hall, right? You want to be part of the Big League Town Hall, right? Shoot us an email to be a part of that, man. I can't wait to do the next town hall. I might be doing one this Thursday. You never know. You never know, man. So make sure you get those emails out to us at info@thefinalballspodcast.com, man. We got a lot of things coming as we approach Season 5, The Harvest, which is episode number 300. Of course, we're going to take a break in between, right? And plus, school's getting ready to start, man. Look, the school is getting ready to start. I'm so... School starts on the 31st, man. Start my doctoral program in philosophy and artificial intelligence, man. Looking forward to completing that program, man. And I will come out as Dr. AI, baby. Dr. AI, that's what you're going to call me. I'm already branding. It's already locked in, right? You can't even go ahead and trademark. It's already done. It's a done rap. It's a rap game, right? So let's get into the rat race of the evening, right? So listen. All right, let's get rid of these. Let's get rid of the headlines, right? Headlines are out of here. Now, I see we got some people on board. Thank you guys for joining us, man. Each and every last single one of you. Thank you for joining us, man. We appreciate you, each and every last single one of you, all the time, right? Now, let's get on board the fired up train. But before we do that, tonight's episode is going to be Chaos to Harvest. Last week, we talked about embracing the chaos. Embracing. Tonight, we're going to be talking about chaos to harvest. Chaos to harvest. That's tonight's show, right? And before we get into tonight's show, let's get to the brass tacks of the evening. So here's the brass tacks. Hey, Chikali, I see you. Right. Angelic, Zulu, Easton, I see you guys. Thank you. And everyone else here, I appreciate you. Look, tonight's brass tacks. Chaos plants it. Discipline waters it. Harvest was never luck. It was the bill finally coming due on everything you refused to quit on, right? I'm going to say that one more time. For those in the back, the brass tacks of the evening. Chaos plants it. We talked about chaos, embracing the chaos, right? We talked about that. Discipline waters it, right? Harvest was never luck. It was the bill finally coming due on everything refused to quit on, and I got receipts for it. My man Cove Boy is back. I see you, man. Thank you for joining us, right? Thank you for joining us. Look, I got a great show. So tonight, here's what you get to experience, Cove, and I need you to go tell all your friends, man, all your family members, everybody, your schoolmates, anybody and everybody, man, who's a part of who Cove Boy is, man. Tell them you're watching the best podcast on the internet right now, man. Go tell them about the Final Boss podcast, man. And listen, what I'm trying to tell you, bro, is look, thank you for being here. So last night, what you watched was Sitting Down Sundays. Tonight is Motivation Mondays. Motivation Mondays is where we get on board the Fired Up train, right? The Fired Up train is a part of the Go Time series. Go Time 1 is all aboard the Fired Up train. Book out now. All books are sold. Then Go Time 2 is about the train has left the station. And ladies and gentlemen, let's get on board the train because the train is in motion and we are leaving for our first destination. Our first destination is the open loop. What grows in the mess that you didn't clean, right? So, if you're new here, thank you for joining us. Everyone else who's part of the community, Final Boss, smarts, motivators, warriors, thank you. Listen, man, you guys are making the episode and this podcast what it is all because of you. The book sold because of you. The merch sold because of you. Everything because of you. Right now, we're on board the Fired Up train, man. Listen, welcome back. Right? It's Motivation Mondays. This is episode number 293, 7 episodes away from season 4, the rebirth, before we hit episode 300, the harvest, right? We're going to step into season 5, and I'm not going to tell you what's going on or what we're waiting for, right? I gave you a little tidbits about that earlier, but now it's time to scale it back and scale forward, right? Because that's embargoed, and I keep my word on embargoes, right? But I will tell you this. Everything we've been building since episode number 201 everything we processed over the last 2 weeks when we talked about embracing chaos instead of running from it. It was never just about surviving the mess. It was about what the mess was quietly growing underneath the surface the entire time, right? And today we're going to be talking about the harvest, right? Not the season name, not yet. That's not time for that yet, right? But just the concept, right? We're going to strip it down to its rawest form, and then we're going to bring the harvest forward to what happens when everything you planted during the chaos finally comes due, right? And here's the question I need you to sit with for the next minutes of this show, right? Ask yourself this question. What if you already planted more than you think? What if the harvest isn't something you're waiting for out in the future? It's something you're standing 3 feet away from right now. You just haven't recognized the field yet, right? You're standing in the cornfield and you don't even know where the harvest is, man. It's right there. It's right there, right? Most people get this part backwards, right? So think harvest is a stroke of luck. You think so? You think so? You think so? Well, let me show you. A moment when things finally go their way after a long stretch of things going wrong. That's not what harvest is. Harvest is arithmetic, right? It's the return on every seed you planted while you were still standing in the storm, still doubting yourself, still not sure any of it would come to anything, right? Nobody plants in perfect conditions. Seeds go into disturbed ground. Chaos is disturbed ground, right? That was never the enemy of the harvest. It was the precondition for it. Look, man, I spent a lot of time working in federal agencies as a branch chief. I've done a lot of different things, man. Military career, right? You know this. You don't get to pick when the systems break because they break all the time. You don't get the clean, orderly conditions to plant good decisions in, right? You plant them anyway, right? You plant them anyway. Look at our state of government, right? Look at the state of government. Chaos everywhere, but they're still moving forward with whatever plans they have, right? Hint. Look, and in the middle of the outreach, right? In the middle of the deployment, in the middle of not knowing, in the middle of all those holes, and years later, decisions I made in the worst conditions I've ever operated in became the exact skill set that let me walk into where I am right now, right? Go time, baby. Go time, right? Listen, this is not inspiration talk. This is an audit of my life, right? That I'm giving you because we're on this journey together, right? And the math holds up each and every last single time. So, here's the open loop, man. Here's the open loop for today. And I want you to carry it through the rest of the evening, right? While I have your attention. Because somewhere in your life, right now, there's a harvest already ripening that you haven't gone to collect. Because you're still standing in the field waiting in the storm to feel officially over before you admit anything good could even come out of it, right? And I'm not closing the loop yet, man. We're going to keep that loop open. I want you to sit with it. We build this case first, right? Segment by segment for why the chaos behind you already owes you a harvest. Whether you claimed it or not, that is on you, right? That is on you. And I'm going to give you this all the way until we close, man. Until we close, I'll give you something a little personal, right? Something about what I'm standing in the middle of and trying to reap right now in real time on this show, right? But your assignment, yes, your assignment as we continue is to ask the harder question. What did the chaos actually plant, right? What did the chaos actually plant? Not what it cost you, what it planted. We're talking about two different columns, two different things, and we're spending today speaking on it, and that is our show. That's our build, man. Let's get into it. It's Motivation Monday. Let's get on board the fired up train. Next destination, right? Harvest was never luck. Let's get on board the fired up train. Conductor, collect those tickets, conductor, collect those tickets, right? Now, let's get precise because the word harvest gets thrown around loosely, and that looseness is robbing people of the thing they actually earn. Harvest is not a windfall. It's not an accident. It's in agriculture. Think about this. In agriculture, harvest is the single most predictable event in the entire cycle because it's governed by law, not chance. You plant the seed does what the seeds do. Time passes, conditions apply pressure, and if the seed was real, the harvest arrives on schedule. The only unpredictable part of the whole process is whether you actually planted something real in the first place. That's the key, right? That's the key. You need to be auditing what you plant, right? Making sure you're not wasting time and spinning your wheels on something that isn't real. Now, apply that, right? We're applying these things to our entire life while we're on this journey together. Man, look, while we're on this journey together, right? Because the Final Boss community, Final Boss Nation, Final Boss family is on the Final Boss journey together. And when I say people say I got lucky, what they usually mean is if you trace it back honestly, I planted something years ago I forgot about, and it finally came due, right? You see the voice change, right? Luck is just harvest without an audit trail. The people who feel like life keeps blessing them out of nowhere are almost always the people who've been quietly planting for a decade while everyone else was watching the chaos and colluding and concluding nothing good could come from it, right? This is where I need you to separate these two things from these people, right? These people who constantly get that confused. We're talking about effort and harvest timing, right? Because you don't get to control when the harvest arrives. Nobody does. Agriculture doesn't negotiate with your patience, but you absolutely control whether there's anything in the ground to begin with. That's the entire game. That's the system, right? Stop trying to force an early harvest and stop abandoning the field because the season feels too long. Control the planting. Control what you plant, right? Let the harvest keep its own clock. The harvest keep its own clock, right? And I want to bring the intellectual side in here, right? Because we're all intellectual, all smarts, right? That's what we do. Smarts, final bosses, motivators, words. This is what we do, man. We are smarts, right? Go use that code. Code boy, listen. Hashtag smarts, my man. Smarts with a Z, right? Use that, right? Now, the show doesn't hide from intelligence, right? And in systems theory, and this particular thing shows up constantly in AI research, right? And in AI research that I'm doing right now on the doctoral level, output always lags input. A model doesn't improve the moment you feed it better data. It improves after enough compounding passes through the system that the improvement becomes visible on the outside. What looks like a sudden breakthrough is actually a delayed harvest of every training pass that came before it. Human growth runs the exact same architecture, right? The breakthrough you're waiting for isn't sudden. It's cumulative. It just becomes visible all at once. So you need to be out there planting seeds, man. You need to be planting those seeds, right? And this is message, right? This is the message for my smarts. This is the message for my smarts, right? Listen, my smarts community specifically, you are exceptional at applying why something hasn't happened yet. I need you to redirect that same analytical horsepower toward auditing what you're already planted, right? Instead of only diagnosing what's still missing. Run the numbers on your own field. Run the numbers on your own life, right? You'll find more growth already underway than your current mood is letting you see, right? Because you're in doom and gloom state. Get out of the doom and gloom state, right? This is season of harvest that's approaching, right? And here's your reframe for this segment, right? Stop asking, when is my harvest coming? Start asking, what have I already planted that I haven't gone back to check for, right? One question keeps you waiting on luck. The other sends you out into your own field to do an honest inventory of what's growing. Only one of those questions actually moves you, right? That's it. That's it. Let's get to the next destination, right? Smarts. Next destination If you're reading the field before the harvest shows itself, if you read the field before the harvest shows itself, here we go. Let's get into it. Now, I'm gonna continue talking to my smarts people, right? Because your community has a specific advantage in this conversation that the other three pillars don't carry the same way, right? You're built to spot patterns before they are, let's say, obvious to everyone else, right? And that's a harvest reading skill, whether you ever find it that way or not. And today I want to sharpen that skill, right? On purpose, instead of leaving it on run, right? And have it running in the background of your life, going unclaimed. So here's a skill, right? Here's a skill in its rawest form. Because listen, a field that's about to produce a harvest looks different from a field that's dead, but only if you know what you're looking for. Dead ground stays exactly the same day after day. No movement, no texture change, nothing, right? A field that's been building toward harvest shows small, boring, easy to miss signals long before the obvious payoff. A slightly different color at the root line, a texture change in the soil, right? Growth that hasn't broken the surface yet, but is absolutely happening underneath, right? Now, let's translate that into your actual life, right? The people who read their own harvest correctly are the ones who notice the boring signals. A conversation that went slightly better than the last 5, right? A skill that took the 4 fewer minutes to execute than it used to. A version of a hand task that used to wreck you for a day and now only costs you an hour. Those are not nothing. Those are your soil changing colors at the root line. Most people dismiss those signals because they're not dramatic enough to count as progress. Smarts, I need you to hear this. I need you to stop requiring drama as proof. Drama is not the marker of growth. Consistency of small change is. Those micro transactions. I spoke about microtransactions 2 seasons ago, right? And here we are still talking about microtransactions, man. Pay attention to those microtransactions. Now, there's a discipline in research, and I want to hand it to you directly, right? Because it applies here without modification. Before you draw a conclusion about any data set, you don't look for the dramatic outlier, right? You look for trend lines across repeated small measurements. A single data point tells you almost nothing. A pattern across 10 data points tell you almost everything, man. You got to check those variables, right? Apply that same discipline to your own life instead of your own spreadsheet. Stop measuring your growth by your single best day. Start measuring it by the trend line across your last 30 ordinary ones, right? And here's the practical exercise for everybody, right? Tonight, right? Write this down. Write down these 3 small, boring, undramatic things that are easier for you now than they were a year ago, right? We're not talking about huge wins. We're talking about the boring ones, right? Create a list, right? That's your field report. This is the proof of the ground already changed underneath you, whether or not you've been paying attention to it. And it's the first real evidence in today's case, right? Harvest isn't the future event. It's already partially underway. You just got to pay attention to the signs, right? Read the data sets, right? Now, intelligence that only spots problems is half a skill. Intelligence that also spots quiet growth is the whole skill. And it's the half most part that smart people never train and realize, right? They never see it. Listen, the train is starting now. Let's get on board. Let's get on board, right? So next up, let's talk about, you know what? Let's get into the cost confession. Let's get into the cost confession, right? And this means, you know, I come out and I tell you guys something personal, right? Or something from my experience that you can have and put in your toolbox right? Put it in your toolbox and help you along your way in your journey, right? Which means, cost confession, I don't get to hide behind the motivation version of this story. I have to give you the real ledger, the actual price, not the highlight reel. And here's the cost confession, right? Man, listen, there were years, real years, not weeks. We're talking about real years where I kept doing the work with zero evidence it was going anywhere. Building the foundations of a lot of different things while still carrying a full federal workload. Writing early drafts of what would eventually become Go Time series, and I didn't have a publisher. I didn't have an audience. I didn't have any proof, anything outside my own head or anyone else to care, right? Recording the earliest versions of what is now this podcast onto a phone, into conversations in the mirror, and with numbers so small, I wouldn't even give you the exact figure. And I had moments that you can go see back in season 1, in the first 10 episodes, I was so frustrated. This podcast almost didn't make it, man. I'm telling you, there were moments of anger, real anger, right? And those numbers aren't the point. The isolation of it all is, because the cost wasn't just time. Time is the easy cost, the one everybody expects to pay. The real cost was a specific kind of doubt that shows up when you're planting in a field nobody else can see yet, right? Family who loved me but didn't understand why I was pouring hours into something with no visible return. Ex-fiance who was doing the same. Colleagues who saw a stable federal career and couldn't understand what I was building, why I was building something extra on top of what I already had at the full plate, right? This was paid in isolation. I paid in being misunderstood by people whose opinion actually mattered to me, right? But they had tunnel vision, right? You know how those people are. But that's not the small cost, right? And I'm not going to pretend it was, right? It wasn't a small cost. And here's the part of the cost confession that matters most, right? At no point during those years did I have proof the harvest was coming. I had no clue. I was just on Go Time. That's why the books are called Go Time, right? None of it was proof. And I want to be completely honest about that, because false certainty isn't inspiring. It's just dishonest, right? I didn't have faith because I saw evidence. I had faith because I decided I was planting the truth, right? I was planting something that was worth doing regardless of whether I got to see the harvest. That's different kind of a commitment, man, than the version usually sold on this platform. And it's the only version that actually survives contact and real chaos, right? And I want to say this directly, right? To whoever listening and currently paying that exact cost right now, the isolation you're in is not proof you're wrong. It's often proof you're early. Everybody who's ever harvested something real paid an isolation tax before the field became visible to everyone else. You're not falling or failing quietly. You are planting quietly, right? Those look identical from the outside and feel identical some days from the inside, but they are not the same thing. And here's something else, right? Not 1 hour of it, because the harvest I'm standing in right now, this show, this audience, this body of work, none of it exists without every paid, unseen, undoubted hour I put into when there was no evidence coming. And that's the actual price of the real harvest. And that doesn't come as a discount, not a shortcut, but the full price. I had no clue. Paid in advance in currency, nobody around you can see you spending, and those moments matter, right? They matter in real time. So let's keep going. Yes. Final bosses. Next destination, I'm sorry. Ownership is what turns a field into a harvest, right? So this is going out to my final bosses, right? Look, I want to start with you guys right now, and I want you to understand the distinction that separates people who harvest from people who stay stuck watching other people's fields turn gold, right? Ownership, not ownership in the legal aspect, not in the paperwork sense, although that matters also. But we're talking about ownership in the psychological sense. The decision that this field, whatever it is, your business, your body, your family's future, your platform is actually yours to tend, not a project you're renting until it gets hard, right? Now, here's what I watched. What separates the final bosses from everyone else standing at the edge of the same field? Because final bosses stop asking permission to claim their harvest. They plant like owners, not like tenants. A tenant improves a property just enough to stay comfortable because deep down they know it isn't really theirs. An owner improves the property like their whole future depends on it because it does. The difference in output between those two mindsets isn't 10%. It's the entire outcome, right? And I want to be specific about the ownership cost because I don't sell the easy version on this show. Ownership means you can't blame the weather when your harvest comes in lighter than expected. A tenant blames the season, right? The market, the timing, the economy, right? An owner asks a harder question. What did I just plant? How did I tend it? What am I going to do differently next season, right? The question is uncomfortable. It's also the only question that actually improves your next harvest, right? Blame keeps you exactly where you are. Ownership moves the field. Now, there's a pattern, and I've seen it across every single venture I've ever built, right? From the early days of old to new car care, Trinity Entertainment, Global Shield Protective Services, Blue Raw, B2G Global, Barbers to Go, Go Time. I've seen it. Vital Signal. I've seen it, man. I've seen it on every platform, right? Look, the moment I stopped treating any of them as side projects and started treating them as fields I owned completely, the output changed within each season. Not five. Not because the universe rewarded my attitude, because ownership changes behavior at a level Tennessee never touches us, right? Or touches. Did I just say touches us? I did say touches us. That was crazy. Y'all don't understand. I'm hot. Man, these lights are hot, right? Yeah, so yeah, and that's the outrage, man. You know, and it's not about the universe rewarding new attitude, because ownership changes behavior, right? You show up earlier, you're going to get a different result. You tend the boring parts nobody is watching in the quiet moments at 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., right? You don't wait for someone else to water what's yours. And here's the direct challenge that I need my final bosses to do today, not tomorrow, today. Pick one field in your life you've been tending, like a tenant, right? Showing up just enough to keep it alive, but not enough to actually own the outcome. Today, right now, before we continue, make the internal declaration that it's yours, right? Make the internal declaration it's yours. Not conditionally, not until it gets harder, but completely yours, including the parts of the harvest that don't come in the way you expected it, right? Tenants wait to be given permission to harvest. Final bosses take ownership of the field before the harvest even proves itself, because they already know whose ground it is. Which one have you been today? Planet, right? Planet it now. Put it in the ground, right? Let's get those harvests going. Next up, next destination, we're going to talk about the uncomfortable verdict. Let's get on board the fire train to the uncomfortable verdict, right? And look, most people quit before the harvest even comes. And this is the uncomfortable truth. And this is why this is the uncomfortable verdict, right? And I'm not going to soften this, right? Because softening it would defeat the entire purpose of the show. Here's the verdict, man. Here's the verdict. The overwhelming majority of people who never harvest anything real didn't fail because they planned wrong. They failed because they walked off the field in the exact season right before the harvest was due. Not because the ground was dead, because the wait between planting and harvest ran longer than the patience, right? And they read the gap as proof of failure instead of proof of timeline, man. Listen, right? Listen, right? And I need you to sit with that, right? And I need you to sit with how brutal that verdict actually is. It means most abandoned dreams weren't wrong ideas, right? They were correct ideas, planted in the real ground, killed by premature abandonment instead of bad seeds. That's the harder truth than it just wasn't meant to be, right? It's harder because it means the outcome was actually within reach and the exit was a choice, not a fate, right? Look, I can speak on this because I made this exact mistake myself. And I'm not going to pretend this verdict only applies to other people. There are fields I walked away from too early in my own life, man. Listen, Barbers to Go, whoo, boy. Let me tell you about Barbers to Go on another show, right? I'll tell you about Barbers to Go on another show. I created Barbers to Go back in 2007, and it gave way for these new platforms, man. Banksy, Cutsy, all these other forms, man, for services and appointments, man. I created Barbers to Go back in 2007, man. None of this stuff was heard of, right? Look, I'm trying to tell you something, right? And those fields, I walked away, and I walked away from it because I didn't give it enough seasons. I was immature. I didn't understand the relationships, right? I was building. I wrote it off as chaos when there was actually just slow harvest. I didn't have the patience to wait out, right? I don't get those seasons back. And that's the real cost of the uncomfortable verdict. It doesn't just diagnose the problem, it confronts you with what the diagnosis actually costs you historically. And there's no version of this segment where I get to skip that part out on myself, right? Or for myself. And here's why this matters specifically right now, right? We're 7 episodes away from season 5, The Harvest. And some of you sitting in the field today that's felt like chaos for so long, you've started planning your exit from it. I need you to run one more check before you walk. Ask yourself honestly, is the field actually dead, or am I standing in the exact uncomfortable middle season where the visible proof hasn't caught up in the visible growth yet? Those two situations feel identical from the inside. Only one of them actually is over, right? Only one of them is actually over, right? The verdict stated plainly, man. Quitting one season too early costs the exact same outcome as never planning one at all. You have to see it through, right? You have to see it through. Except for worse, if you keep going, you can see the harvest. You can see the product because you carry the memory of how close you were. That's not meant to trap you into staying in genuinely dead fields forever. And that's not the lesson either. The lesson is that the decision to leave a field deserves the same rigor as the decision to plant one. Don't let exhaustion make that call for you. Let evidence make it, right? Look, I need you guys to name one field you're currently on the edge of, and you're sitting on a breakthrough, right? But don't abandon it yet. Don't abandon it yet. It's not time. Don't abandon it. You're in the middle of the field, right? Now, ask yourself out loud, if you have to, is the dead ground, or is this dead ground, or is this the uncomfortable middle season? Answer honestly. We move forward either way, but move forward with the truth, not the exhaustion talking. Let's go. Let's go. Let's get on board the fire train, right? Let's get on board the fired up train, right? Now, let's talk about the rebirth, right? And I want to get specific and personal here because abstraction only teaches so much. And I owe you the real accounting the same way I owed you in the cost confession earlier, right? When season 4, The Rebirth, opened at episode number 201, I was not the same version of myself standing in front of this mic that I am right now. And I want to name exactly what changed because the changes are the harvest, not just the background detail. And at the start of the season, I was still, in a lot of ways, operating from the dimmed version of myself I confessed to earlier, right? Playing coy about the depth of what I was working on and still calibrating how much of my full intellectual self that I was spending on this platform could hold, right? That was chaos I was standing in privately while producing this show publicly. And most of you never knew it. You never saw it because dimming yourself or myself by design is invisible to the audience, right? And here's what got planted across this exact season that I'm only now standing close enough to harvest to tell you about. The decision made gradually across dozens of episodes to stop editing myself down wasn't a sudden moment. It was the harvest of seasons worth of smaller decisions, letting the AI Foundation's research show up more directly in what those shows or like Merger Wednesdays we're talking about, right? Letting my layman's block exist without apologizing for completely being the complexity that was underneath it, right? And back to Merger, right? Merger Wednesdays exists at full doctoral density without translating it down for comfort. It's not, I don't do it for comfort, right? Every one of those was small planting. And I did an apology that that some of you have witnessed right here on this show, right? And I also want to name what the season planted operationally, right? Not just personally, because final bosses need both. The brand expansion protocol running underneath every episode, the time directed protocol locking every segment to a real enforce everything, right? With no improvisation. The 4-pillar community structure, smarts, final bosses, more warriors, and motivators actually address directly in content instead of just the hashtags you guys see when I make these posts, right? None of that existed in its current form. All of it is from the harvest, from decisions planted across the exact season. And most of them made it in seasons where I had no proof any of it would even matter to anyone listening. And here's the honest part of the confession, right? I don't fully know you yet, right? I don't fully know you yet. And I don't fully know yet that everything this season is planted is going to show up in the harvest. Some of it I won't see the harvest of until we're well past episode 300, possibly well into whatever comes after that. And that's not a hedge. That's just the truth about how real harvest works. The ones worth having take longer to fully mature than a single season can always reveal, right? But what I can tell you is that with complete certainty, standing here at episode number 293 is the version of me closing out Rebirth, is not the version who opened it. And that is a difference by inches. Every inch of it we've planted in exactly the chaos this season demanded. I stand in it without flinching, right? Now, let's talk let's talk about what it means for the fields you've been building this whole season also, right? Let's talk about it. Uh, all right. All aboard the fired up train. Sorry about that, right? Next up, your season field report, right? Now, we're knee deep in this, right? Knee deep, and hopefully we finish on time. And I want to hand this segment fully back to you, the community, because everything I confessed about my own season only matters if it becomes a mirror instead of just a story. And here's the exercise. I want you to mentally walk back to whatever and wherever you were standing at the start of this year. Or if that's too far back, wherever you were standing the start of whatever chaos you're currently in the middle of processing, right? You're either going into the storm, you're in the storm, or you're coming out of the storm, right? But I want you to walk it back to when the chaos began. Think about it, right? Think about that. Now, we're not talking about a highlight version, right? We're talking about the honest version, the one with the doubt still in it, the one where you didn't know if any of it would work out. That's your episode 201, right? That's the opening of your personal season 4. Now, let's go do the hard part. Let's do the hard part, right? Walk forward from there, from that point, right, to today. And instead of looking for the dramatic wins, look for exactly what we trained you to feed or find back in earlier part of the segment. The boring, quiet signals. What slightly was different in you now that wasn't different then, right? A conversation you handled better. A fear that used to stop you cold that now just slows you down for an hour instead of a week. A version of confidence that didn't exist at the start of this season and exists even quietly, even privately right now. That's not nothing, right? What that is, by every definition, is what we build. That's an active harvest already underway. And I want to push every final boss, smart motivators, and warriors all at once, right here in this moment. Because this exercise belongs to the entire community equally. Whatever field you've been standing in through your own version of the rebirth, I need you to stop waiting for a single dramatic proof point before you admit the season did anything. That's the same trap we named in the earlier segment. Harvest doesn't usually arrive at once or as one big obvious event. It arrives as an accumulation you have to go looking for. The same way I had to go looking for this entire podcast season actually planted in me before I could stand here and speak to you guys about it on these mics, right? On these mics in this chair, right? And confess it to you honestly, right? And here's a specific practice to carry past this episode, right? Because episode 300, before season 5 opens, I need you guys to do a real written field report on your own season 4. Not a vague journal entry, an actual accounting. What chaos did you stand in? What did you plant during it, even when you couldn't see the point? And what's already growing that you haven't formally acknowledged? We're 7 episodes away from where this show crosses into whatever comes next. And I want you crossing the same line with a harvest you've actually taken inventory of, not one you're still pretending hasn't started yet. The report is yours to write, not mine. But I'll tell you this much. If today's episode did its job, you already have more material for it than you thought you did 50 minutes ago. Let's build the bridge and then close, right? Let's build the bridge and then close. Next destination, the bridge, right? The bridge from reading the field to standing in it. Let's talk about it, right? We're almost done. And I want to build the bridge deliberately, right? Because everything today has been leading toward a specific place. And I don't want to arrive there without you saying exactly how we got there. Or here. We opened this episode with a question. What is the harvest? Or I should say, wait a minute, hold on. Yeah. That's delicious. What if the harvest wasn't something out in your future, but something you're already standing 3 feet away from without recognizing the field? Right? We spent the middle of this episode building every piece of evidence for why the question deserves a serious answer instead of a dismissive one. Chaos plants real seeds, not disorder. Ownership turns a field into a harvest. The hardest ground shows up right before the reap, not as a sign of failure, but as a landmark of proximity and convergence, right? Whether in a neutral or a neural network or in a human life, it's never actually sudden. It just becomes more visible, right? And here's what all of that was building towards. And I want to say it right now. Because the entire episode wasn't really about a future harvest waiting somewhere down the road. It was about training you to recognize a harvest that's already active right now in your life, in your fields. And you've just been standing there in it without even crediting it, right? That's the actual shift. Not keep planning and someday you'll reap, but the truer, harder, more useful version is you are already standing inside a harvest you haven't fully acknowledged. And acknowledging it changes what you do next, right? I told you back in segment, I don't remember, but I told you back early, right, that I'll close the episode with something personal, something about what I'm standing in the middle of reaping right now in real time on this exact show. And I've been building to that all episode through the confession about the rebirth planted in me, through the honest accounting of the cost, through naming what this podcast has become across 293 episodes, of tending a field most people couldn't see the value of, episode number 201. The close is coming, right? And I'm going to, and look, I'm not going to soften it. Nope, because I don't do that. I'm not performing it. Nope, don't do that either. And I'm going to say it exactly how true it actually is, right? So here's the bridge, right? Look, everything I taught today about reading your own field, about I'm about to do it one more time. Let's fast forward. I'm about to do it right now. We talked about the podcast. We talked about the 7 remaining episodes of what I believe is actually about to come due. Let's get there, right? Let's get there, man. Let's get there. So, all aboard the fired up train. The next destination is, what if I'm actually in the middle of the reaping? Yeah, me. Yeah, me. Yes. Pay attention. Nice in the session. Stay in your seats. The principal said no one in the hallway, no hallway passes, no bathroom breaks, right? We're almost done. Give me 5 minutes, right? And I'm going to give it to you exactly and as honest as I could be, right? Look, I built this podcast from nothing, right? Into a phone, alone, with no evidence it would ever become anything beyond a personal record of a season I was trying to survive. 293 episodes later, 5 shows a week, 4 community pillars, a brand expansion protocol running underneath every single one of them, a time directive protocol enforced with a precision most shows never bother. I'm standing right now inside the harvest of every hour I put into this when there was no proof that a harvest was coming. And that's not a boast, that's not vanity. That's just the same audit that I asked you to run on your own life that I've been asking you to do the entire episode. And I'm directly applying it to mine, honestly, so you can see. And here's what I haven't said out loud on the show before, right? And I'm saying out now, right now, because the harvest was always meant to be shared, not hoarded. The doctoral work, the AI Foundation's research, Merger Wednesdays, the entire sovereignty stack, all of it was planted during years when I genuinely did not know it would even connect to an audience behind a handful of people. I kept building it anyway, the same way I told you in a cost confession. Not because I had proof, but because I decided the planning mattered independently, right? Of whether I get to stand here and say this or not. But this exact moment, on this exact show, on this exact episode, at the harvest of this decision, not the whole harvest, but real, tangible, undeniable proof the field wasn't dead ground the whole time I was standing in it, uncertain. And here's the part that we can close on, right? I told you somewhere in your life, there's a harvest already ripening that you haven't gone to collect. Mine, the one I'm naming right now, out loud, unapologetically, is this show itself at exactly this point in this arc. 7 episodes from episode 300. A season closing that I planted in chaos I didn't fully understand when it started. Tended through hard ground I described honestly in segment 8. And now I'm standing inside the reap of it in real time with you right now. Smarts, final bosses, motivators, warriors, whichever pillar you carry today, I need you to walk out of this episode and go find your own version of this very closing. Not someday, but now. Right now. The field you've been standing in, doubting, tending to quietly, defending through the hardest stretch. It's closer to harvest than your current mood is letting you believe. It's time for you to go collect. Go collect what's already yours, right? Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Motivation Mondays. Let's get on board the fired up train. This is season 4, The Rebirth, Arc 5, The Declaration, episode number 293, Chaos to Harvest. I am the final boss. This is the Final Boss Podcast. Look, let's go reap what we built. Let's go reap. Whoa, man, what is that? Let's go reap what we built, right? And then, listen, there's a heavy pain that comes with discipline, but there's an even heavier pain that comes with regret. I am jeez. Okay. All right, we get it. Maybe they don't want me to go. I am here. We are here. Be balanced, be equal, and be smart. That is our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us, man. As always, if I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That is the greeting of the day. That is the end of our show for this evening. And I'll see you again, guys, again tomorrow for Tech Tuesdays with the Sensei. Talk to you then. Have a great one. Boom.
They thought it was over. They thought the fire burned out. But fire doesn't destroy the chosen. It forges them. Hosted by Turbo, the CEO. New energy. New strategy. Every setback builds strength. Every loss builds strategy. And every leader rises again. The rebirth begins. Season 4. Bigger conversations. Real strategy. Power moves only. Monday motivation. Tech Tuesday. Merger Wednesday. Special guest Thursdays, sit down Sundays. Season 4 starts now. Tap in or get left behind, because bosses don't wait, they lead.